MultiVersus used to have over 40 different perks, but today 30 of them have been deleted. Perks like Ice to Beat You and Back to Back, Tasmanian Trajectory, and many more were beloved by the community. So why were they removed? Perks in MultiVersus are supposed to spice up the gameplay, adding unique elements to your fighter's kit that could cover their weaknesses and highlight their strengths. Although some were wacky or very niche, there were others that were incredibly strong and fun to use. So it's very confusing that now today many of those don't exist. Well, according to Player First, perks weren't seen as valuable to players in the beta, with most of them being rarely used. With so many options, it could be understandable why a player could be overwhelmed, opting to stick with the same 3 perks no matter the matchup. Or perhaps the perks were too simple or boring for the player. Today we're going to go through all the deleted perks in MultiVersus to see which have the possibility of coming back. Let's start with the most recently deleted perk near the tail end of Season 3, Last Stand, which was replaced with Broken Wings. Last Stand in the beta and in the re-release functioned slightly different. In the beta, once reaching 100 damage, you would get increased damage. But in the re-release, it was changed to add a stack of Weakened. Now, why was it removed? Well, it was initially removed for balancing sake. However, its removal suggests that it wasn't able to be properly balanced. Last Stand was actually the only remaining perk that provided Weaken, a modifier that increases knockback and damage. It did enhance gameplay. Being at 100 damage puts you at a very vulnerable position, so having a perk that gives you increased damage to finish off an opponent puts both the player and the enemy honestly in a unique position, with one that heavily favors survival and tankiness. If the beta version of this perk couldn't make it to the re-release and the full release version got replaced, it might be best for Last Stand to stay in the vault. And Last Stand isn't the only perk that developers had trouble balancing, because another perk, Hit 'em While They're Down, also applied Weaken. Now, I loved this perk on Batman. It increases the damage on debuffed enemies. This perk was perfect for characters that already have debuffs naturally in their kit, like Harley, Batman, Garnet. However, when it comes to enhancing the experience, Hit 'em While They're Down hits it on the nail. It's not a passive perk that is just in the background at all times. It's something that you actually have to actively activate and work towards, and intertwine it within your combos. Now, would this perk come back? Sadly, I don't think so. On the one hand, it's an active perk, so you have to actually engage into the game to make it worthwhile, which I think is a great idea. The idea of activating a perk due to your playstyle is very rewarding. On the other hand, for these bruisers and assassins, they already do so much damage, with people going 0 to 90 in 2 combos. But I think it can come back. It enhances the gameplay and puts a little bit of thought into what you're gonna do, and equipping it shows that you're gonna have at least some sort of strategy when engaging. Now, I'm sure there's one perk that you guys will all love to come back into the game. Let me know which one it is down in the comments. But let's start with the offensive perks. Starting with Deadshot, increases projectile damage, a perk that is only useful for a select number of fighters, and you would have to use a lot of projectiles to offset the value you could be getting from another more general perk. So could it come back? I say no, because Player First Games made an active effort to reduce the amount of projectiles on screen, and with the release of less projectile based characters in the re-release, you can see that it's a major point of emphasis for the team going forward, at least for now. Speaking of perks that activated with strategy, like Hit 'em While They're Down, I'll take that was a great perk for Batman and Harley Quinn. This perk, when activated, reduces the cooldown on debuffed enemies. Each hit takes off 0.25 seconds off your cooldowns. This sounds minuscule, but imagine the combos. This might be why it was removed. Cooldowns are such a huge part of balancing, so a perk that supplements this means that characters are being made with much longer cooldowns than they would otherwise have been, just to offset the help that I'll take that brings. Even though it was fun to play Batman and engage with a Batarang, activating the Weaken debuff and then hitting them with a 3-piece combo just to lower down your cooldown, in combination with the Hit 'em While They're Down perk, with the synergy of many fighters' kits, it being so fun and promoted aggression, man, maybe it should come back to the game. Absorbing Go, cooldown refund after getting knocked back by a projectile. Look, I wish I could tell y'all this perk was but I can't. Beta MultiVersus was projectile hell. Your ass was gon' get hit. It could be an energy beam, batarang, lightning, or a damn sandwich. Best believe you're getting hit with something. But could this perk come back? I think not, for reasons I've already stated. It's not a projectile meta, but there is another perk on this list that performs like this perk, but better. Lumpy Space Punch, increased damage to melee melee air attacks. Tony from Player First actually discussed the balancing headache that this perk brought during the closed alpha. Back then, it was only increased knockback to attacks in the air, with his knockback going up to 10% when stacked. I also can't imagine much use this perk given how specific melee air attacks can be. Although gliding through the air gives you a level of freedom, it's also the most vulnerable position you can be in. Plus, this isn't the beta, you're not moving that fast, so I don't see this one coming back. Make it rain, dog. Increase projectile speed by 10 to 20%. Speed is the name of the game. Morty, LeBron, Tom and Jerry benefited greatly with this perk, making projectiles harder to dodge. In combination with Deadshot, you got some very hard-hitting projectiles. Man, I remember Tom and Jerry tennis balls were so slow, and LeBron's pass style was so slow. So not only did the inclusion of the perk actually make certain projectiles slower off rips, so that way the addition of this perk would be worthwhile, understanding that projectiles and game speed were already a problem in the beta for viewership and casual players, it's understandable why this perk was left out in the re-release. So could it come back? I don't see why not, given that projectiles and overall clutter has been decreased, but definitely not 20%. Painted target. Till this day, I don't know what a hit stun really means. I'm assuming it's on hit and the stun animations. MultiVersus created that doesn't know what a hit stun is. That's what we're dealing with. Regardless, painted target was outclassed as an offensive perk, when perks like Snowball Effect and Wildcat Brawler work in all cases when damage was inflicted. Its inclusion was redundant, and that's why I don't think it should return in any form. Percussive Power Puncher and Up Up and a Slay. These two perks both did increase damage depending on whether you sent your enemy vertically or horizontally. Not sure if many of you know, but above each fighter is a tag on how difficult the fighter is and which axis their attacks dominate. This can be one of three: vertical, horizontal, and hybrid. Not only is equipping one limiting the potential damage you could be doing, but also you can imagine equipping both would be redundant with perks like Snowball and Wildcat, which don't care about the direction you're sending them in. So you just end up wasting 2 perk slots for one. Fundamentally, you can't and wouldn't have one without the other. These perks just wouldn't fit the game. Matter of fact, they shouldn't have even been in the game at all. Up Up and a Slay is a cool name though. Shirt Cannon Sniper. Increases damage to far away targets. This was a very niche perk, which I actually did use a few times on LeBron with his exploding basketball perk. It's a very niche perk that promotes a very specific style of play that is generally frowned upon in video games. So yeah, this one can stay canon. Now, I'm not against niche and specific perks. In fact, I prefer them. However, when there are perks that can increase projectile damage regardless of distance, this perk just adds extra steps. It makes no sense, so it wasn't picked. Slippery when faint. Increases dodge distance when dodging out of attack, hit, cancel. When dodging out of attack, hit, cancel. So like when you're stunned? So when you attack and dodge. Yep. That's what we're dealing with. Comment down below if you actually use this perk, because attack dodging was something that was prevalent. Ran amok, ran astray in the beta. You could whiff an attack, instantly recover with a dodge. Would this come back? It could, but I don't think so. Mainly because it doesn't fit the current style of gameplay. The game is much more slowed down. It's much more methodical. You have to think about what you're gonna do. You can't just spam out attacks, else you're gonna get punished. And you definitely wouldn't be able to get out of a dodge, hit, cancel. That's not all, folks. This perk, after a ring out, pushes the attacker towards the center of the map if they're near the blast zone. This was actually a perk in one of the season 1 rifts. However, second breath of wings is just better after a ring out, as it gives the player more control of where they're gonna land. In a 2v2 setting, this is gonna be very important. Even though it's fun and I do like it, it should be built into a game mode of some sort, like a bounce house mode or something. Onto the defense perks. Wonder Twins powers activate, reduce damage when near to a teammate. This is actually a perk that won in my community poll when I asked y'all which perk you would like to see return into the game. And it makes sense why. Back-to-back was a good perk, promoting team play, even though it could backfire, making you easy combo food for the enemy, and the perk was active and engaging enough to be its own little mini game at times. Boundless Energy. Increased dodge recharge time, 10 to 20%. With the changes to the dodge system making you have less, there's a clear path for this to actually be a usable perk in the current version of the game. Never saw a single person use this, by the way, which made sense. In the beta, your dodge came back super quick. You could dodge like 12 times before getting tired, and it recharged pretty quick if you weren't spamming. Clear the air. Destroy non-heavy projectiles projectiles after neutral dodging them. Sadly, the fact that the parry projectile perk gets no play, I don't see this one getting any love either. Best to keep it canned with the re-release. Slippery Customer, giving a longer dodge and vulnerability window, 10 to 15%. You can't tell me this wouldn't be tough. As someone who's not that adept to dodging, this would be a pretty helpful perk to have. However, it is a bit more passive, and there's very few of those in the game right now, making it hard to see that it will be implemented later on. Sturdy Dodger grants armor after neutral dodging a projectile. Originally Dodge Armor. Yeah, this is just Sturdy Dodger rebranded. Tune Elasticity, reducing the speed when hitting floors or walls. I actually think this perk was very useful. I saw a good number of people running it from time to time. One of the few perks that's actually map dependent, only really being useful in Scooby's Haunted Mouse, maybe Cromulons and the Throne Room. There just wasn't enough variety in map selection that could allow you to use this perk more reliably. Perk that you're probably only running on 1 to 3 of the 7 maps at the time shows that it wasn't really that versatile. And maybe it's pretty helpful playing against Steven, but come on, if you really need a specific perk just to beat Steven, yikes. But other than its lack of adaptability, I see no reason why it can't come back into the game. And finally, the utility perks. Starting with In a Single Bound. In a game like MultiVersus, movement is key. Precise dodges, frame perfect setups, and reads understanding your players' hits and hurt boxes, as well as your opponents, are crucial at the highest levels that it almost becomes a game of footsies. Well, maybe in the beta, because in the full release, I think it's so punishing to be in the air without a plan. Coupled with the fact that you're much slower when you move and not being able to momentum your way out makes this style of jumpy hop around playstyle a little bit ill-advised. It's a no for me. The same could go for Leg Day Champ. Being able to jump a few frames higher, which I assume is for the more heavier fighters, sounds like it could make a feasible return considering that we have the Speed Force boost, but a much better solution would be incorporating this into the Speed Force assist perk so you run and jump faster. I wonder if the perk already does that. Base movement speed, base movement, like it just movement's pretty broad and he's just running in the picture, so it's kind of hard to really tell. I probably have to test this. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with. Aerial Acrobat. This was actually a top 3 perk in the beta. It increases your air acceleration, allowing you to get to your max speed much quicker. So those first initial frames of you moving through the air are a lot faster. And in a game where movement is key, you can see that this would be a non-negotiable perk. So why was it left out in the full release? I can only assume because it was so strong. Coupled that with the fact that the game was already so fast, removing this perk from the full release might have just been an extra precaution, keeping players in line with the new vision of the game. But could it return? I don't know. It might throw the community in a frenzy. But hey, a little speed buff won't hurt nobody, right? CoffeeZilla, another one of the top 3 perks, and it's not 3. Reducing the ability cooldown durations straight up. Equip the perk and profit. Yeah, a perk so strong that it was passive. The reason for them removing this perk was clear. Being able to offset your really long cooldowns messes with the game's balancing. Characters that wouldn't have had long cooldowns now actually have longer cooldowns just because they believe that you're going to have this perk equipped. Better to toss it out altogether and give us more fun and interesting perks to use in that slot. I'm gonna group these 3 perks all together. Fancy Footwork, Gravity Manipulation, Hit 'em if you can. Reducing dodge distance, increasing your fast fall speed, and increasing your dodge speed. Between these 3, Gravity Manipulation is an easy out. I rarely see people even fast fall in the game now. In the beta, it was more prevalent, but a perk just to fall faster, yeah, no thanks. Fancy Footwork is actually pretty useful, getting you out of situations where you probably would have been still stuck, and faster dodge speeds would make it harder for players to react to your combos. All in all, none of these perks really scream enhanced gameplay, where fast falling and dodge speed is such a small part of the game, so they can all stay in the trash. I dodge, you dodge, we dodge. Ability cooldown refund after dodging an attack sounds great. However, it relies on your ability to dodge. Why have this perk when you can just have CoffeeZilla and it will do it straight up for you? Or I'll take that, which only requires you to hit the opponent and not dodge. After all, hitting an attack is much easier than dodging an attack. Retaliation Ready grants gray health for 3 seconds after getting hit with a projectile. If you don't know what gray health is, it's basically a buffer attack that only Iron Giant and I believe Samurai Jack have. This perk only really made sense in the beta with a projectile heavy meta and characters that had bigger hitboxes. And the gray health really wouldn't stack that far. I believe up to like 3 gray health at a time. So do I see it coming back? It's a very niche perk that I actually really like the idea of, perhaps with a different set of requirements and conditions. I could see this perk coming back in a reworked format. Tasmanian Trajectory, increased base knockback influence. This is something I'm not even sure that's in the game game anymore, but in the beta you can slightly influence the direction you would get hit in by tilting your character in a certain direction, whether that be up and to the left or side and to the right. But I'll be honest, I don't think knockback influence is even in the game, and if it is, I can't feel it, which means this perk could fill an unknown hole in the MultiVersus gameplay. So for that, I do think it can make a return. And lastly, the one you're probably all waiting for, triple jump. Receive an extra jump after hitting an enemy in the air. Triple jump was such an amazing perk. It was top 3, not 3, not 2. It was definitely number 1. And that's because triple jump filled a natural void that second breath and that's not all just couldn't fill, because they required you to knock out an enemy. Its simple requirement and versatility allowed it to expand the movements of the fighter. So not only could you use the extra jump to recover back to stage, you could also use the third jump as an extra combo extender to secure kills. Now, could this perk come back? Having more options for moving around the map is huge in platform fighters, but it also means its addition needs to be taken with care. But 100% yes. A third jump adds an extra dimension, an extra skill gap to the game. It quite literally unlocks combos that were only possible in the beta. So in terms of enhancing gameplay, it's an easy check. It's not as passive like other perks like CoffeeZilla, actually requiring you to hit the enemy while in the air and actually have some idea of what you're going to be using it for, but it's also not too niche like Short Cannon Sniper, so you'll be seeing it many times within a match. And not only that, the perk is fun. So with that, I do believe triple jump has the best chance of re-entering the game, but it wasn't included off launch even though it was a very popular perk, which tells me it might just come back as a fighter signature perk, like maybe Ben 10, I don't know. But that's all 30 perks that were deleted and changed in MultiVersus. What's one perk that you would want to come back into MultiVersus? Comment it down below. If there's another game you guys want me to talk about covering all of its deleted or missing abilities, Apex, comment that game down below. And as always, be mighty. And if you're down for more MultiVersus, click this video.